up on that, Minister. I've heard your arguments around that, and there's scenarios that I'm really concerned about in this situation, and I want to put a scenario to you and get your comment on it. So if you're in a school, for example, and you've got teacher aides who all work part-time, and most of them work 25 hours a week, but their working day is 5 hours, why should they get less sick leave than their colleagues who work 8-hour working days? So they don't get flu for 50%
That's the point
of the time.
we made.
So it's concerning that there's this lump in part-time workers saying that, it's not fair, but they're working the same number of days.
So if I can give you possibly the most simple example would be if you have somebody who works a 5-day week and they get ill, they could potentially take 2 weeks off, right? Because they get 10 days sick leave. If you have someone who works maybe 1 day each week, which would be, say it's every Monday, if they had 10 days sick leave, they could in theory take 10 weeks off. Those are disproportionate. And so what we're bringing to the system is proportionality. If someone is only working half the week, they should only be entitled to half the amount of sick leave, because for the other portion of the week that they might be sick, they weren't working. And so the business owner shouldn't necessarily be liable for sick leave when that person wasn't working that period of time anyway.
So how many of those cases that you've just said there are those people taking all of that time?
I don't have statistics for.
So then what's the problem?
In that respect, but it's about what's right, Jan. We're doing this because we believe it's right.
But it's not based on evidence.
What? It's about the proportion of time that someone is actually working, because time and time again, we put costs onto business all the time. Think of all of the compliance that we have.
Doesn't
This
cost.
is about what's right in the system. Yeah. I don't think there are many people actually out there when I've talked to people.
Example.
So I'd like to make a point out there. When an employee leaves a business, you don't receive a cash payment for unused sick leave.
Okay, yeah.
So the scenario of where this potentially could happen a lot of, such as your teenager working 1 day a week on a Sunday, I doubt is going to be getting a payout of unpaid sick leave, or is going to take 10 weeks off in a year.
How does that even work, though? It's like, okay, you work 1 day per week, you take 10 weeks off. Wouldn't that make more sense to, like, I don't know, take X amount of... How the fuck does that work?
Like, that would imply you have to throw a sickie every second or third Sunday for 10 weeks straight. And, like, here's the other thing is, it states under there for medical certificates.
Does anyone...
if you take more than 3 days consecutively, doesn't mean you're working.
Correct.
You would be required to put in a medical certificate. And a great one is to say, if you take a Friday off and you call in sick on Friday and you call in sick on Monday, even if you weren't rostered on Saturday or Sunday, but that's more than 3 consecutive days in a row, so that's 4 days that you're sick, you would be required to produce a medical certificate. So if someone is taking 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, 4 weeks off, now you've got to be pretty sick to take 4 1 day a week shifts off in a row. Now I can tell you right now, a doctor is going. I don't think a general sickness of, I had the flu, or I've got a headache, or I've got a cold. I think if you ended up doing that over a week, over a month, red flags will get raised. And the thing is, that cost is not burdened on the employer.
Yep.
Like a 1 day medical is. That cost is burdened on the employee. So an employee, and I don't know if there are any doctors who issue out for illness. Now, injury is a different story, but for illness, who would issue out, say, a 4-week medical certificate, unless there are things like, maybe it's measles, quarantine things. But those sorts of things, there's guidelines on, both for medical purposes and for employment purposes. You can sit there and basically look up online. If you go, what's the average time frame someone should take if they have measles? You'll find a result on there. You'll find one on WorkSafe New Zealand's website. You'll find one on Ministry of Health.
Yep. It doesn't make any sense. Like, okay, you're sick, so for a week, right? You can't do your job, so you get paid for the 1 day off, right? You don't take 10 weeks worth of pay when you go on your sick leave. You just take the amount that you need, correct?
Correct.
I mean,
yes.
you're an employer, yeah.
Now, Rajan, you have asked the question: has Brooke ever worked normal job? No, Brooke has never ran a business. Brooke has never worked a normal union job that we not in a full-time capacity. Her only work experience is working on the taxpayer's dime, either as an EA for David Seymour or as an MP.
Holy shit. Okay, so no wonder why she's having trouble with the numbers. Okay, yeah, because that's not how it works in reality. People don't take 10 weeks worth of pay for 1 day off.
Yeah.
I've got the cold, I need 10 weeks off.
Here's the thing I do for billing for when I do labour calculations in my business. So when I have events, I budget staff at $200 a day per staff member. So let's say the person is working for the business. This is not what they get in their pay packet. This is for the business. That you have staff member working for 8 hours a day, $25 an hour, 8 hours. That's $200. Say so they say that's off work. You're not. If you're off for 10 weeks, you're only getting $200 a pop. You're not getting. A grand. You can't take 6 days off for days you're not rostered on. You cannot
you can't. No, that's where she's making the mistake. That's where the mistake is that she's making. You can't take a sick day off for the days that you're not rostered on. You can't take pay for that either. That's not how it works.
Yeah. It's like, you can't take sick days off. Yeah, you have to be rostered on to get sick pay.
Yes.
You can't even take sick leave in place of annual leave if you get sick while you're on annual leave. You can't do that.
Yep.
Well, actually, I do know of an employer who actually did do that once. Ironically, it was actually at BP. The manager recorded as sick pay instead of annual leave because the person ended up being sick, and actually, it cut into his actual work availability as well. So it was something like we had these. We were at a certain point just to cut back on over ones on leaves and all that, and to train new staff members for different shifts. Some of us were taking 2 days annual leave off, and then a newbie would come in to train on those 2 days to learn that shift.
Yep.
And what happened was James ended up being sick on those 2 days off. They were asked, can you take annual leave so we can train the newbie? So he got 2 days sick pay. But that wasn't common.
Yeah,
in my situation, I was given annual leave. Well, actually, it was my loo days. But yeah. It was more the fact of staff had to be trained in certain shifts. And in order to do that it was a way of getting them quickly trained up to do that shift with someone else taking the day off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And of course, temps can be bought in and stuff like that as well. There's ways that employers can get through this problem without losing a worker for 10 weeks. But yeah, like to talk to Jeff's point.
Well, put it this way:
Jeff,
when do doctors do home calls these days? I had a friend who wanted a home call from a doctor during COVID, and she couldn't get one, but she wanted a house call because she didn't want to go to a GP's practice.
Oh, well,
I don't know what it was.
And
possibly, yes, the doctor could pay that, but boy, I'd hate to know what the cost is. Plus, the other one is if your employer sends someone other than your GP to do a house call, it could cost the employer nearly $1,000. Is it worth paying $1,000 for a $200 a day sick pay?
Good question. There is a point that I'd like to bring up though. Because I have a sister that's kind of stuck in this situation because she works in a labouring job. Quite often, workers can't get the time they need to go to the doctor. So here's what I would like, and if Brooke Van Veldon wants to be based, she can use this recommendation. please make it that workers can get half a day off based on their doctor's recommendations so they can get a blood test and have them be paid for that. Because workers do get sick and sick workers reduce productivity.
Yeah. And you do get some employers who won't accept you not coming into work until you've had that medical cert.
Yep.
Yeah. There are some,
ridiculous.
and I can tell you, we had those managers at BP who would not accept the sick day until you had the doctor's note. So if you could get into your GP and, you know, what we meant to do, pay $100 at the after hours clinic?
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason why my sister can't go to the doctor right now is because she's just started her job, right?
Yeah.
There's kind of like a 6-month thingamajig that she has to work for about 6 months before she can get paid to leave. Yep, and she can't, because she has to drive all the way from my rural town to Masterton, right? By the time she finishes work, the doctor's offices are closed. She can't get the blood test that she needs. She can't get the stuff that she needs. They won't give her time off to do it. They won't pay for her to get time off to do it. So that's a problem. That's a problem for new workers, and that needs to be changed.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, Jason's got the point in there, you've got to book 3 weeks in advance. Yep, it's the same with my GP. At the moment, there is a lot of that because he's on a second international trip to the UK this year. My GP, it's something to do with his mother. I just know last time he had a locum, he got his sister-in-law to be the locum. This time around, I don't think that is going to be in there. But yes, you're right. Like, can you even try to do a blood test on the lunch break? Because I don't know what the labs availabilities are like in Masterton. I do know in Wellington, Wellington Hospital is quite a wide set of hours during the week. But that's only at Wellington Hospital. That isn't at, you know, I don't know what Masterton's like, but I doubt that it would have a 7 to 7 sort of hours. It probably has 8 to 5.
Yep, 8 to 5. So, yeah, again, and this is something that should be put into legislation, giving workers, you know, not a full day's worth of pay, but maybe like an hour or two's worth of pay so they can go.
Actually, I had a friend, my friend Graham was in that boat so he had a heart attack, unknown that he had a heart attack. He went to the after-hours clinic. He got saw by a lovely doctor called Mary English. Don't hold anything against the fact that it was Bill English's wife. She was the doctor. He speaks very highly of that experience, nothing negative. Thought it was the flu.
Yep, that's fine.
And her advice was, if you still have problems in 3 days, see your GP. 3 days, see his GP. Oh, well, Graham, it's gone on for 3 days now. We need your blood test. Okay, Graham, you can go and do the blood test tomorrow. I understand. Okay, you got working hours time. Yes, you can do the blood test tomorrow. Following day, does the blood test. 2 hours after the blood test, phone call at work. Hi, Graham, get yourself to the emergency department of the hospital. You've had a heart attack. And put it this way, a fortnight later, he was having a quad bypass.
Yeah. Shit happens. The stuff does happen.
Yeah, it is.
You know, you've got to make sure that there's a safety net there for workers, especially if they've just started a job, right? You've got to, and that's where, again, you know, this part-time pay thingamajig could come in handy. You know, you could go, okay, we can give that worker, you could have a little bit of put aside.
Actually, I can tell you at BP, they did have an account for half a day sick leave.
There you go.
I can tell you that, and it was under the Current Holidays Act.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's continue more with Brooke. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about how different companies do things and how bad some employers are.